I make no secret about it, and I'm not a big Tamron Hall fan. She kind of rubs me the wrong way. But this particular clip is about Ted Cruz, who I am specifically a Ted Cruz hater. This guy is a Canadian. He should not even be running. Well, anyway, within this clip, you're going to see one of his main campaign advisors basically going to try to spin what's going on with Ted Cruz in the nomination process.
Presidential candidates are on to Super Tuesday, as we all are, quite honestly. Much of their focus will be on the biggest state up for grabs, and that is Texas. That's where we're heading tonight. Now, the state's governor, Greg Abbott, will formally endorse Senator Cruz this afternoon. It's a big boost for Cruz, whose best and likely only chance of scoring the presidential nomination hinges on him winning his home state. Here are the numbers. Take a look at the screen. Texas has 155 delegates at play. Most are awarded from the state's 36 congressional districts. Each district has 3 delegates. Here's the point. If a candidate wins the district by 50% or more, they get all 3 delegates. If not, then it's broken down by vote percentage. There are also other so-called at-large delegates up for grabs. Cruz's campaign is hoping the complex formula for winning delegates will tip in his favor. Here's another number to think about right now. The latest poll out of Texas shows the senator with just an 8-point lead over Donald Trump. And joining me now from Houston is Ron Nehring, former California Republican Party chair, now the California chair of the Cruz campaign. Thank you so much, Ron, for joining me.
Good morning.
Good morning. So normally if you were to see a poll and you'd say Ted Cruz is leading Trump by 8 points, you might say, okay, impressive. But when you're talking about Texas and an 8-point lead from Senator Cruz, a very vocal Texan, that is not good. How do you process it?
Oh, I think we're in great shape in the state of Texas. As a matter of fact, you know, we had that big endorsement coming out today. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is chairman of the senator's campaign here in the state of Texas. He won a come-from-behind victory when he first ran for the Senate. He ran against the sitting lieutenant governor and won a come-from-behind victory there because he united conservatives. He knows how to win, and he's in good shape. So we're looking now at a great campaign here in the state of Texas, and then moving on, you know, to Super Tuesday. Our plan so far is exactly on track. We said initially that we would win one of the initial states voting in the month of February. We did that. Marco Rubio.
When they say they did that, Cruz cheated. He stole votes from Carson. So, you know, they need to stop talking about Iowa. Yeah, they did win, but I would downplay that, especially given the dirty tricks that he pulled on Carson and that phony voter violation form that they shot out there.
Firewall in Nevada has been burned to ashes. He did not win in the state of Nevada as he needed to. He didn't win in South Carolina as he said he needed to. So we're in good shape going into Super Tuesday.
So you're telling me your plan was to win in Iowa and lose in South Dakota, evangelicals, and lose in Nevada? That was the plan?
No, our plan was, we were very clear from the outset that our plan was to win one of the 4 early states. We accomplished that. Marco Rubio said that his plan was to come in 3rd in Iowa, which he did, to come in 2nd in New Hampshire, which he didn't. He came in 5th, and to win the state of South Carolina, which he didn't, and then to win in the state of Nevada as his firewall, which he didn't. So this is a 19-week process. Our plan is built around that 19-week process to getting to 1,237 delegates. This is a race for delegates. Texas is the 2nd largest state in the country, and the biggest state in the country in California, which votes on June 7th. That's my state. We're well organized there, well positioned there. The last poll conducted in California had us up by 2. So we're taking this one step at a time, methodically. I know a lot of the analysis, you know, wants to pretend that the race is over after every election that takes place, but that's not what it is. This campaign is built for the long haul, and the next up is Super Tuesday.
Yeah, and let's be clear, we're not saying the race is over, but we are trying to understand the strategy, and I'll make the point here. In the course of our conversation, by my count, you said Marco Rubio's name 3 times, but never addressed the biggest challenge that's facing Ted Cruz in Texas, which is Donald Trump. So let me ask you this. Why has he been losing the evangelical vote to Donald Trump at this point?
Well, one thing that people should know, of course, is that the evangelical vote is not monolithic. In the more liberal parts of South Carolina, for example, the coastal area, or the capital of Columbia, Marco Rubio did better there because liberal evangelicals are more likely to vote for a different candidate. There's no question about that. That's not a monolithic vote. At the end of the day, it's critical for us to unite conservatives, which has been happening, which is we've been moving in that direction going forward, and the dynamic of the race has also changed. We started with 17 candidates, now we're down to 5. That will continue to narrow as we go forward, and the candidate who has a really hard time going forward is Marco Rubio, because Marco Rubio can't unite conservatives. Ted Cruz can, and that's the biggest element in the dynamic as we move forward toward a one-on-one race with Donald Trump. The candidate who has a problem in Texas is Donald Trump, and because he's not in the lead here, he's not going to do well here. Ted Cruz is going to do well here, and the momentum that we have by having the endorsement of the state's very popular governor coming out today, joining the lieutenant governor and many other Texas officials, gives Ted Cruz that boost going forward.
I'm hoping that Ted Cruz gets his butt kicked in Texas, though it's probably not going to happen. But this guy spun like crazy. Ted Cruz he came in, he got a first, and then he's got nothing but thirds, basically, going forward. If Ted Cruz doesn't severely kick Donald Trump's butt in Texas in order to get the lion's share of the delegates there, there's not another state that Ted Cruz is projected to be able to win going forward. So, but the thing that I wanted to bring to your attention was she asked him about Ted Cruz's strategy against Donald Trump, and he immediately pivoted to Marco Rubio. So that just tells me that these guys they're scared of Trump. Rubio's scared of him, and Cruz is absolutely terrified of him. Trump is beating Cruz in all of his bases, which would be extreme conservatives and also evangelicals. So everything that these guys are saying right now is just a bunch of lip service.
Well, listen, Marco Rubio thought the very popular governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, would help him as well. It did get him ahead of Cruz, but it did not get him a victory. So the whole notion of endorsements, even with popular governors, is kind of being turned on its head when you look at the polls out of Nevada, and folks are looking for the outsider voice. I also want to quickly ask you, though, out of Nevada as well, the very conservative, Donald Trump took that vote, 38%, Rubio 23%, Senator Cruz at 34%. So amongst the very conservative, even after Donald Trump applauded Planned Parenthood, some of the things he said about entitlements, some of the things that are completely anti-conservative, he still won the very conservative of your party last night.
Well, let me go back to the point that you raised concerning South Carolina and those endorsements there, because I think that that's important. If Marco Rubio could not win in South Carolina, where he had the endorsement of the state's governor, he had the endorsement of Senator Tim Scott, the endorsement of Congressman Trey Gowdy, he had the entire establishment behind him, $50 million spent on ads communicating with about 800,000 voters, and he himself said that he was going to win in South Carolina. If he could not win there, then where is he going to be able to win? Where?
But Cruz said the same thing. If Cruz couldn't win in South Carolina with all the evangelicals in South Carolina, which were tons more than in Iowa, like I said, his only shot after that is basically Texas. But he's not even being able to pull in his own particular base to support him. So the guy's doing a great job of trying to spin, and he's trying to spin, that Rubio's underperforming, but Cruz is underperforming as well.
Super Tuesday. And in fact, he was asked this question, and he answered Florida. Well, Florida votes on March 15th, and by the time the polls close in his own state of Florida, a total of 60% of all the delegates will have been allocated. So if anybody has a real challenge going forward, it's Marco Rubio.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. It's a great pleasure. We'll see what happens in Texas on Super Tuesday. And still ahead, what?
So basically, Cruz is banking on Texas to try to pull his fat out of the fire. But it would only pull the fat out of the fire so far, because after Texas, he's basically done, because the majority of the southern states will have already had their primaries and caucuses. Then you move back to the North and the Midwest, where Cruz really isn't that strong, and Kasich is somewhat strong, but Trump is basically strong across the board everywhere. Now, this guy did mention California. Cruz is not going to win California. You know, he's just got the pie in the sky ideals as far as Cruz winning California. Trump is more than likely going to win California, but by that time, dumbass Ben Carson should be long gone. Kasich, if he doesn't win Ohio, will be long gone, and the jury's going to be out on Rubio, because Rubio is going to probably be in this thing to the end, because he's going to have the backing of the establishment and the establishment dollars. Whereas Cruz, once he gets out of Texas, his support is probably going to dry up.